actually running games since 2015, and I played lots of different systems. 5e, or no, Pathfinder was my first one. Then 5e, I've done some of the Star Wars stuff, so the Force and Destiny stuff, Fate system, been all over it, and a bunch of stuff. Dungeon Brawl, I still want to try. Dungeon Brawl sounds awesome. But I was the one who kind of like got Eddie's ear here. He's like, hey, you want to do like a DM session or something?
Yeah.
People are interested. Like, okay. And then I got this one involved as well.
We recruited Lisa.
I've been playing. Well, I've been into D&D for like 3 or 4 years, and I've actually been able to play for like 2 years. So I've
and you've run a couple.
I've run a
Twist it
couple
to
of
zero so the
games,
fans
and
shut up.
very much
We're gonna freeze sitting
super
here.
game. It's kind of taken over my life. So.
Awesome, dude. Appreciate it. We're just turning the fans off so people can hear you.
Oh,
Okay.
yes.
So do you want to tell them so you told them the idea of what we want to do?
Yeah. So are we still?
Yeah. I'll if any has questions, I'll tell you.
Okay. So the idea was initially just to start running D&D and have people come in and see who either wanted to just bring a game or see people wanted to pay one of us to DM or something like that. I know that's a thing now, like $10 or something. But there's like
a shortage of DMs.
a shortage of DMs.
A lot of people want to play. I think we all know like there's a certain boom that's happening right now culturally in like nerd stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
a lot of people want to play D&D. Not enough people want to DM. It's intimidating to be in the hot seat and being in control, even though we're all control freaks.
We'll touch on that.
We'll get there.
That's part of it. We're
Yes.
also going to touch on.
We're gonna talk about herding cats.
So we wanted to see like who was interested in like DMing
And what the questions are. Like,
yeah.
what are the barriers that are keeping? What are the things that are keeping people from doing it?
Yeah. So we have a presentation up here, pretty basic, just to kind of run through some things that we've seen, as well as some of the questions that some people don't even know to ask when you're starting out, and some things, social stuff that comes up that
Yeah, stuff that's
impacts
not
games.
in the guide.
Yeah. So if we're recording,
Go
do
for it.
you want me to do a little intro? And then
Yeah, if you want to, go for it.
Yeah. Okay, so my name's Varun.
I'm
Here
Lissa.
Yep. And we're here at lovely Flynn's Gaming.
Thank you.
In amazing Margate, Florida. I'm selling here. I'm selling real hard.
There you go.
We're here for a Dungeon Master's workshop. We have a bunch of friends who are off camera with varying levels of experience who will be throwing questions in. But our DM workshop today is, as you can see up here, Dungeon Master 101. So you want to run an RPG? And I think one of the things that we'll start up front is that we'll say, just to set the expectation, it won't be so much of a lecture. We're the ones kind of driving this because that's kind of where we ended up, and we have the impetus to do it. But we'll keep it like free form.
Okay.
Keep it like a discussion, so you might hear something from these guys.
Cool.
I think that's a good lesson for D&D in general. It doesn't have to be rigidly structured. It can be pretty loose. We'll talk about things through the lens of 5Ns,
5e is mostly where we're like coming from. Yeah.
Yeah, but we can reference other systems if they come up, but that's the most common.
Cool.
It's most likely, like, especially for the newer people coming in, that's most likely what you're going to look at, especially with the games that we're going to try to run here. You're going to see people wanting to play 5e.
Yes.
Who is the DM? What is the DM? What's your role?
That's the first question. A lot of people will say the Dungeon Master's God, which if you're more experienced, you'll kind of shake your head at that because it's not exactly the Dungeon Master's God, because that implies that the Dungeon Master has a will and everything that's happening is happening for a reason, which isn't necessarily the case. You're rolling dice. A lot of it's really random in the game. So we came up the best catchphrase version. You're the interpreter of the universe. So the players have control over everything that they are. They created their characters, so they know their race, their class, their background, all of those things, and they can work together to make those intertwine. but so they have control over that. But being the interpreter of the universe, the Dungeon Master, they're gravity. They are, I roll the dice and I can lift this heavy thing. Or I can sneak without being seen. You're everything that the players aren't, but you're the lens in which they can actually view the world. You're not trying to kill them. You're not trying to be their best friend.
You're just letting them know what the consequences of their actions are.
Yeah.
That's really the bottom line is. The beauty of D&D is it's very much a game of action, reaction, reaction, reaction.
And a lot of folks come in with the perception that the Dungeon Master is all-knowing, knows everything, knows all the rules. It's not true at all. We're going to break that down. and that whatever they say goes. And in a sense of like dice rolls, that's mainly true. But in the sense of story and progression and where the campaign's going to go, that should be a collaborative effort. And that's going to go to important things to remember.
And this is not any like. This is a random list.
This isn't a comprehensive list.
It's a comprehensive list.
These are the things that came to mind as like the most important. Yeah. So these are the ideas to have in your head while you're getting players together, while you're figuring out a schedule, while you're figuring out, do we want to play D&D or do we want to play something else? Collaboration. So have everyone involved in the creation of the game. Like session 0, we're going to get to that. But have them involved in their character creation, and if possible, have them all do their character creation together.
And have them involved in world creation too.
Mm-hmm.
It really helps with the herding cats if your cats are invested in the world that they're in.
Yeah.
If your players don't care about, you know, the city's on fire or whatever, you're not going to be able to get them to do the heroic things. You're not going to be able to get them to do the adventure if they don't care. So getting them to care is one of the jobs of one of the collaborative efforts that you have to make.
We did not practice this.
Doing good.
We've been talking for days.
Yeah.
Lost that ability real quick.
But I think you're right. If the players feel free to be able to add to the world,
Yes.
that's how they invest. So like if they're in a town and they're trying to overcome something and they're like, yeah, well, I was here before, and the last time I was here, this guy owes me money, so if you guys can help me collect the money, then we can overcome this thing. And it's like,
True.
now all of a sudden he's got a buddy in town. He might have pulled a job in there before, so all of a sudden now he's going to remember that town. And want, you know, so it's allowing them to have that buy-in,
Yeah.
investment.
I think
Keep them involved, engaged, invested.
I think you mentioned one from Critical Role, right? There was some random NPC that I don't know if you guys watched it, but there was some random NPC that was just an NPC that plucked out of nowhere, and they just really like that NPC.
And then suddenly, you know, the GM has to flush that guy out, and they even take that guy into battle. And now he has to figure out, okay, what does this guy do? Other things, it's also showing, and this comes up later, but helping your players understand that their actions have consequences.
Yeah.
Again, another example of that is, again, from Critical Role, one of my favorite just little like arcs that he does is every now and again, like it'll be dozens of sessions in between, but they'll run into the same group of ruffians, and every time they run into them, they've like improved their lives a little bit because the player party, the Mighty Nine, they've scared this group of ruffians so witless that they've cleaned up their act, and now they're just fur traders.
But that came from them playing together, like.
And how they've interacted with the world, and how the world reacted back to them.
Yeah, if you get players to do that, they'll always want to come back and play and be like, okay, I'm gonna figure out what happens next.
Give us your clothes.
No, bad.
We have examples from real life.
Well, real life is in our game.
Our game, our non-critical role, but from our actual game, where you have a son now. You have an in-game son, and like, how's that working out?
So I play a tiefling warlock because of course I do, and I thought we were just killing a succubus who was terrorizing a small town. Turns out, no, she was minding her business, just trying to hatch her egg, and now I have a son. Actions, consequences.
Yeah, it gets real weird with her wife running around.
My wife, who's not my wife, we're figuring it out. You know, found family is really one of the things that people really love about D&D, but
yeah.
We'll talk about this, but you'll talk to your party, you'll talk to your players, you'll talk to your friends about what kind of game you want to run.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys want something with story where you'll eventually, you know, you're already friends?
We'll dig into that with Assassin Zero. That's like the next one. But like actual on the ground stuff while you're coming up with the game and while you're collaborating with the players, talk about things like house rules. So everyone knows any RPG, you're totally allowed to break the rules as long as you're consistent, as long as the players, you know, sign off. If everyone's okay with flanking in D&D, not every DM plays with that, but flanking, inspiration, milestone experience versus just points for battle.
Yeah, the stuff with, especially with like rules that have to do with battle, like flanking, you want to make sure that you're not being unfair in the sense that, like, all right, you're going to give your players this advantage. Well, the enemies that are attacking them are also going to have that advantage. Mm-hmm. So you guys all know what flanking is, the rules for flanking, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So you don't want to just be like, all right, you guys can do this thing where you're standing each on the other side of the enemy and you get an advantage.
It changes how battle works tactically, but it's just be consistent. Like if you want flanking to work, but it works a different way than it says in the book, fine. But communicate that to your players. Don't just be like making this decision in your brain and then, oh, they're like dead because I got a +10 instead of a +5 from flanking, but they never knew that was there.
To like communicate house rules to them
Yes.
before you begin.
Yeah,
during?
while the game is being created before the first session starts.
Okay.
You'll see a few words repeated over and over on these slides. It's communication and getting feedback. Is very important in like making sure that everybody's having fun.
And that's the next thing.
Yeah. While you are not the arbiter of fun, you should be having fun. And if you're not, then get together, talk about it, figure out what it is, make adjustments. It is just a game.
Yeah, the Dungeon Master is a player, so like you're separate from the actual player characters, but you're a player in the game. So if you're not having fun doing this, that's something you should definitely bring up to your group. You know, if you want a very story-heavy campaign, but they're just killing everyone, every NPC that comes along, you're like, hey guys,
What can I do to bring you more to my...
Yeah. Well, what can we have? Can we have a compromise? Maybe just don't murder everyone. Just like leave one of them. I want to do a voice.
No, I'm just curious. The only time I played, the DM was also a character. Is that not normal?
I mean, some DMs will do self-insert characters, or you know, have a character that they get to play through.
So
that's a choice.
It's tough because I have a DM screen right here.
Yeah.
You have to keep track of all of this, and you don't need to know all of this in your brain, but you need to keep track. Does someone have a condition? Does someone have inspiration? Do you have to make a check here? How hard is it? All that stuff, as well as actually running a character in the world, it's difficult. It's not impossible, and if the players are okay with it, sure, but it usually tends to the DM, because they know everything that's going to come, they'll have to either hold back and make their NPC kind of useless, or their NPC will kind of like run to the fore because they know.
Just like playing chess against yourself.
Yeah.
Was he using it in effect? Because sometimes when you begin, you can use an NPC as the voice
As
of
a
the
guide.
DM. Was he using like the voice of the DM? Like if he couldn't convey the story properly, maybe the NPC would like know the thing that you guys needed to get to the next
exposition.
Oh, no.
So sometimes it's like a crutch a little bit, but
That could be a
as
crutch
you're
in the beginning.
you know.
Yeah, he was just... I mean, he always got good rolls, so I'm pretty sure he was just cheating.
He's God and knows. Like,
He's a level 20 character. We're playing level 1.
Attacks every round. I don't get it.
I mean, this is a discussion that we had in preparation for this. So of course, like the Lord of the Rings, like you see the Fellowship, they're a party, right? They're an adventuring party, and I always interpreted Gandalf as basically he is the DM surrogate, where comes in, he gets you all together,
Exposition.
he gives you the exposition, and then he disappears.
Then he comes back.
Okay.
And then he comes back at the end
and then
to
he'll
reap the glory.
disappear, and then he'll disappear, and then he'll be even stronger.
Exactly.
And then
Then he'll come back as a white, and then
come back with more
purple power.
Come on, we all know he single-handedly took Balrog so he could get the experience.
Yeah,
I want to take it on.
He's just like, I want all of that experience.
New
So,
armor, new weapons.
That's true. I didn't think about that.
But
Revelations.
A DM insert character isn't uncommon. Him being with the party is uncommon in my experience, at least for an extended period. So they'll be there like in the beginning as kind of like a guide, and then they'll usually, once the players kind of get a hang of it, just let them go and let them do their own thing.
And then actually, in your example with the Balrog and Gandalf, so the party overcame the challenge, which was escaping the Balrog and getting out of the cave. So they did overcome a challenge and would get experience for that. Obviously, Gandalf defeated the big nasty, but so it's when you're DMing, you want to be able to understand how to reward. The characters,
yeah, that's the last thing is actions of consequences, and part of that is rewarding, not just killing the thing, but maybe escaping, maybe outwitting.
A lot of skill challenges.
Yeah.
Skill
Athletics,
challenges is something that
acrobatics.
honestly we're saving for maybe like the next
All right.
class.
Yeah.
You're getting ahead of everybody. You're reading ahead,
Moving too
son.
fast.
Communication. That's the other big thing we want to harp on. We're people in the real world, and but some people really get invested in their games. Sometimes some will screw someone over in the game, and that makes them feel some kind of way in real life, and that can have real consequences, not only in the game but in real life. I've seen some people get real mad at each other IRL, when the game's done, they're still mad because of some shit they did. I gotta stop cursing. Communication. You as the dungeon master, you can see all of this. You don't have to be the organizer and arbiter of all this, but because you see this, you can bring it up to them. If two people are having conflict, take them aside when the game is done, or if it's really bad during the game, during a break, and talk to them about hey, are you mad about this, and usually when people talk it out, they'll be like, this is what my character would have done in that situation. If the response is I want to be a dick in real life, there's not much you can do about that. That's just someone being shitty. But most of the time, when people can kind of talk those situations out, they'll diffuse that real life tension. And then the other part of it we have up there, feedback. This isn't in the book at all, I think, but something I learned from playing with other DMs, especially when you have a new group who's starting out, get feedback when you're a new DM or when they're new players. See what they like, see what they didn't like. If there was a whole section where they were when there was a whole section they were traveling and they were traveling for the whole session, and they're like, I didn't really like that because we took the whole session to get there and then we didn't do anything because it took so long. I took that as feedback to say okay, I need to speed up travel sometimes because we can't spend the whole session on a boat doing nothing.
When's the best time to get feedback?
At the end of the session.
Yeah, something that I've learned from Varun as a DM is at the end of every session, you ask your players, did we have fun? What were your favorite moments? Was there anything that we needed improving on?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think, is there anything that bothered you? Get straight up, just ask. It's awkward at first, but it becomes a habit, and people you get better at responding.
And usually, once players get more comfortable, they'll be okay giving that feedback of in the beginning they'll be like, oh yeah, everything's fun, everything's great, and then they'll be like, I didn't like this, or I felt this was unfair or something, and then that's something you guys can definitely hash out. And even if everyone loved everything, you have that opportunity of reliving that session you just had, which is really good for a gaming group. A lot of people, I loved rolling a crit and chopping off that thing's head, or
I loved banishing the guard to get it.
on our last session, one of our players, who was a tiny girl, they needed to get into a town by proving their strength. So instead of doing some feat of great, physical acumen, she just uses her magic to banish the giant guard to another dimension.
So we have our 4 party members. First comes our fighter, and she, slashes the guard real good, and he's like, all right, you've proven yourself. Next, And then our ranger comes in and smacks him in the head with his bow, and he's like, all right, you've proven yourself next. And then our warlock comes up, it's me, and I smack him upside the head with a firebolt, and he's just like, that was dirty. And then he tries to attack me, and I backhand him, and he's just like, all right, next. And then this little girl comes up, and he's just like, we're gonna fight a little girl. You're gonna fight a little girl. I don't want to fight a little girl. The little girl just banishes him. Oh, so good.
So we had a question, Varun. Someone asked about session 0.
We are going to touch on that next, but that is preparing. So once you finally have the system in place, once you finally have some players ready to commit, the things to talk about then. But we'll finish up the last thing. Actions have consequences, rewarding players. D&D by default is going to ask you to do a lot of combat for experience. That's not the only way you have to play. They also have rules for milestone experience to say you get done with a quest, you get done with certain objectives, you get experience, you level up. And
personal goals, or if you do something that affects the world in some major way.
Yeah, your actions have consequences. They leave a mark on the world. And that can be the inverse for evil players. Players who are normally supposed to be good or heroic, they do something super evil, have the world respond in kind. But yeah, let's go to the next one. Preliminary decisions. So this is the Dungeon Master first. Before you've gotten the players together, right before session 0. Are you planning on playing a one-shot? So you're just getting everybody together to try a game and see how it feels? Or are you getting ready for a campaign? You know these people want to play a game more long-term. They want to get together for multiple sessions. Or you have at least have that feeling. So have that in mind.
How long do campaigns last?
That is such a good question. It lasts how long the players want it to last.
Okay.
So even pre-made ones can be drawn out if the players want to do a lot of RP, if they want to go off.
Pre-made means it like from a book?
Yeah, from a book like this.
Okay.
This D&D box came with a pre-made campain.
5e when it got
Can you hold it up?
came out with...
There you go, so they can see it. Oh, okay, perfect. All right. Cool. All right.
5e when it got released came out with Fandelver's Mine, right?
Yeah.
Right? Lost Mine of Fandelver, something like that.
That was the starter set.
That's the one.
That was the starter set for 5e, and there's with the boom of D&D podcasts, there's one, The Adventure Zone, that starts out with Fandelver's Mine, and then it eventually goes into its own. The DM created his own world just kicked off with Fandelver's, which is something that you can do.
And and we'll touch on this with campaign stuff, but you don't even have to play in the Forgotten Realms. You can make your own world, but then that comes into being over-prepared sometimes. But also decide, like, what system are you going to use? 5e is the one we're talking about, but Dungeon World, Fate system. Are you playing in the Star Wars universe using the Fantasy Flight system?
Are you playing Vampire the Masquerade?
You really want to play
I
that
really
one.
want to play Vampire the Masquerade.
I want to play it too. Like,
Now, when you
let's do
choose your system, do you have to get the opinion of your campaign mates, or do you say screw it, I'm doing whatever I want?
Definitely get their opinion.
Okay.
If they're more in the know and they're more experienced, they may have some misgivings about certain systems. Most players don't delve into the DM rules enough to know that. So there's usually some trust there to say, okay, we're playing 5e. The Dungeon Master knows what they're doing, and they're gonna help us out. But definitely run it by them and say, this is how the system works.
Okay, cool.
And then, how long do you plan on playing per session, and how long do you plan on the campaign going on? So per session is just a logistics thing. How long do you have to play per week, per month? How often are you going to play? That's just time management. That's a big thing in D&D today, especially. People are so busy managing not just your schedule, but 3 other players, 4 other players, however many other players' schedules to get together. So have that in mind, and then I always like to do this, but not 6 months. You want to go a year? Do you have a question mark there, and we'll just get done when we get done. Have that in mind so you can bring that to the players to say, this isn't a huge investment forever. We'll play for like a month. We'll play for 2 months, and then we'll be done. On average, that might go longer, and then definitely brook that to them when it gets there. But that's definitely something to have in mind, logistics-wise.
Remember when I was telling you that Bannon, the documentary, caught up with him, and this is like 3 years later. He's like, "Oh, we're gonna go play now." I was like, "This can't be real." Like people holding out for 3 years, you know.
Really committed.
What would be like a normal runtime for a session?
That's a good question.
How
That's a
into
really.
it you are?
Our games usually run 2 to 3 hours, depending.
2 to 3 hours is short.
Yeah.
So
It's
here's
4 to 6.
Yeah,
But
so yeah,
you know, we're all
it varies. So right now, our weekly campaign, because we can only do it on Thursday nights, is we run about 9 to 12, but we start immediately at 9. Sometimes earlier, depending on if people get there earlier, but it's 9 to midnight.
Yeah.
That's it.
And so you're doing weekly as well, so the
We do.
frequency is higher. So if you
It
make
helps.
every other week, then you do 4 to 6 hours, or if it's less often.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I see what
You
you're
Get-
get
saying.
cover ground.
Getting
We've done an 8 hour.
timing.
We have.
We have. It's not- it was not
they're
fun.
not. Well, they're not hard to do either.
So it's marathon and
Yeah.
games.
So timing out a session definitely comes with experience. Definitely plan in the beginning, say 3-4 hours is a good, gives you a good cushion in case because people are going to be unfamiliar with their characters at first. They're going to still need to know, okay, how does combat work? All those sort of things. So give
and
yourself.
that also builds in that time at the beginning
Yeah.
for for people to settle in, get their snacks, whatever, and then also that time at the end for you to get that feedback.
And just a general rule, especially in 5th edition, but in most RPGs, combat usually extends any session because once you're in combat, we're thinking, but the game itself is going much slower. So we're thinking out tactically, turn by turn. Where's my character going to stand? What am I going to do? Am I going to cast a spell? Am I going to use my sword? Whatever it is. Delving into the combat roles.
Something that I don't see up there, and I think that it's a
Do you have
factor,
another question?
that plays a factor in it, is the number of players.
Mm-hmm.
Because the number of players, each combat round takes longer if there's more players, so that extends the entire play time.
Mm-hmm.
So really, that'll factor into figuring out the time.
Yeah.
And even how many enemies are they dealing with?
Yeah.
Are there
How complex
layer
are the combats?
actions?
Yeah.
All
Is
of
it always a
that.
mystery
Are you
to
fighting
figure
an
out?
army?
Yeah, I mean those things are going to factor in. And
Yeah,
multiplied
so-
by the number of players.
So definitely starting out, 3-4 hours is a good starting time. If your players are able to commit to more, great. Then you can take a break in between, maybe have lunch or something. If it's definitely going over 4 hours in person, definitely take a break in between because people won't want to be sitting at a table forever. They want to get up. They want to have food. You're doing a social thing. But if they're able to commit to more, yeah, go with that. And then from there, every party's different. You'll be able to time it out better from there.
And Jamie said, unless you want to use same characters at AL tables at cons, then it matters what system. I don't know what she means by
AL
that.
is Adventure League.
I know it's Adventure League. I get it. Yeah, but it does matter.
I mean, sure. If you're playing Adventure League and you're using the same character again, absolutely. But you're in a con, so that's a bit more of a time crunch. Because the con's going to be over, you have other things to do. That's kind of up to you, and you're
I
playing
don't
with.
think they're talking about time, but I think they're talking about what system you're
The system. She said the system was
shoot.
because Jamie just. I'm just kind of like relaying. Jamie just said
Yes,
that.
that absolutely matters for
okay.
Adventure League. Yes.
Okay.
That's 5th edition alone.
Okay.
But when you're doing that, that decision's just kind of already made for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
And Adventure League, because they front load a lot of the work for you, it takes a lot of that time stuff out of it.
Okay.
The last thing is, where will you play? Have a location in mind. Are you going to play online? Do you have somewhere like Flynn's? Do you just go to Tate's? Whatever it is. But are you going to someone's house? Kind of have that in mind as well.
Yeah, we plan to open up Monday nights because the arcade's closed. So we plan to open up Monday nights until when Will and I finish out the build out on our next space, which we really haven't announced yet. But when we work on that, which will take a couple months to get done, then we can run it pretty much anytime we want.
Gotcha.
You know.
Beautiful. Monday nights.
So Monday nights for right now, until the foreseeable future. So,
Alright.
Get
Then
like
the
a
next.
game going here.
yeah, that's what we plan because we were going to move machines to the side. We can fit tons of tables down the middle. Scott's seen the play. We can make it evolve to whatever we need it to have. So.
Okay.
All right.
So now we're going to talk about session 0.
No, we had a question on this
Yeah,
before.
go ahead.
So
You had a
what
question?
goes into session 0? This is when you're first getting your players together before you've done any character creation, because that's the first thing. Create the characters with the players together if possible. Sometimes logistically you have to get with people one-on-one to create their characters, but the best experience I've had is get everyone in the same room and have them talk out. What kind of character do you want to play? Do you want to play? Does someone want to play an orc and another one wants to play an orc? Oh, they might be related. And that just
Not all orcs are related.
that kind of collaboration comes out of just being in the same place.
So session 0 is like that's ground zero. That's before you begin. Okay.
It's exactly what it sounds like.
All right. Well, to us, but to make it so everyone
you're
understands.
not necessarily starting play now.
Okay.
You are creating characters, setting the world for the players, talking about them, talking about what sort of tone you want the campaign to be. What sort of gameplay do you want it to be? Do you want it to be really combat heavy? Do you want it to be role play heavy?
Do you want the world to be comedic? Do you want it to be dramatic?
Yes.
Because you don't want to. You as the DM, you're going to work on this story. You're going to work on this world, and then you're going to have this like serious political intrigue going on in the background. But then one of your player characters is like a centaur named
Bob.
It's the Centaur Bob.
Jack Bowles.
But setting the proper expectations.
Okay. And you guys are going to discuss here also like I'm talking about tactile stuff you would have with you. Is that a slide? Like what you should actually physically have.
That's one of the things
Well,
is
we can
that
talk about it
you
here.
don't really need anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
We live in a
You
great
need-
era. You
you
got
need this
a pen.
and
you got
this.
some
Okay, that's
paper,
it. All right.
Technically.
You're good.
Cool.
You honestly don't even need the books anymore because there are online resources where you can get all of those rules and monster stats and
All the stuff for
all of
free.
that nitty gritty. Not even dice. I mean, dice are fun. I love dice. I am a dice hoarder, but
You have bad.
you can have. There are like apps for rolling dice.
Okay.
Clicky-clacky math.
But
Clicky clacky math rocks. Don't eat them though.
But yeah, bringing to the first session as a dungeon master, bring whatever resources you're going to need for character creation. So if it's 5th edition, either the Dungeon Master's Guide, the Player's Guide, if you have them physically, or 5esrd.com. That's all the open source character stuff, or D&D Beyond has all the character creation stuff there. You can create it in an app, or just copy it down onto a physical sheet if you guys are doing it that way. Piece of paper. People are going to want to make notes. Definitely dice for 5th edition. It's pretty dice intensive. Generally, RPGs may not need that, but have a set of dice. And that's pretty much all you need for session 0. Stuff to help the characters create their characters, and then a notepad for yourself for any sort of notes that come up, any sort of secrets their characters may have, or any sort of impacts they might want to have on the world, so you can start shaping the game.
Or if you notice that, like, oh hey, that person's making that character's backstory, and they have a witch in their backstory, and there's a witch vaguely in their backstory, maybe it's the same witch.
Yes.
Do you guys under the create characters with the players? Is there like we want to talk about that a little bit, like flaws or like threads? The more threads that you give the DM to pull, the more your character's going to be involved in like the main everything, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of those kind of things.
Like, for example, when I was setting up my character for our campaign, I got a very ominous text message from my dearest DM Varun, and it just said, "Are there any specific names or people in your character's backstory?" And I'm just like,
That thing
Here.
we care about is yeah, that's like.
and I'm like, well,
Just ask for friends.
her teach.
Who can I
Her
kill that will make
friends?
you mad at me?
I didn't.
You know what? That's not what I go for. But that's a personal thing.
I mean, you as the DM can choose, like, am I going to kill my player character's friends, or is something horrible going to happen to their family, and they're going to have to avenge? Is that a motivation that I'm going to give them later on? You know, if that's not already a motivation that they have, because you know we love dead parents here at Dungeons and Dragons.
But to the but to the 5th edition point, definitely
Trauma bonding.
some people have, or some dungeon masters, if they're really mechanics focused, will sometimes want to skip the bonds, the flaws, the ideals, the background sections. Don't do that, because then that takes away. That makes your characters empty vessels.
Yeah, for sure. So I actually sometimes.
Yes, a line is a little thing on your character sheet, but you can largely ignore it. Unless you're like a cleric or a paladin, or you have a specific item that like requires you to have a certain alignment. Alignment is really
A suggestion?
a suggestion. Yeah.
Yeah. When you guys are talking about the entire party being a part of the character creation process, exactly where's the line that you draw on what all the people playing should know about each other's characters?
That is something that you can talk to your players about. It's like, do you care if the other players know, or would you rather have like go over here in the corner and you can whisper to me your secrets? That's something where it's part of that communication, collaboration.
Yeah, there's no blanket.
There's not really like a hard line. Really, there's not really a hard line on any of this.
Yeah.
You can take all of this and throw it in the garbage and make your own choices.
I would definitely suggest if you are having characters that have corresponding backstories, that they definitely match whatever tone you guys are trying to set for your campaign. Only because, and this is just recently in our previous session, we had two characters who, in the very beginning of the campaign, when we were, we're kind of just getting this world started, we knew like we wanted to take this one a little bit more serious than our last campaign. And when they started, one of the players really was like kind of enthralled by the idea of having their characters connected somehow, as far as but they wanted to do their example of Step Brothers, the movie Step Brothers. So they thought it was funny. And so obviously the other guy was like, oh yeah, that's awesome, let's do that. Not realizing that, I really don't I just kind of let him write the backstory for it, and then I was like, yeah, sure, whatever, man, that works. Like it vaguely fits whatever I got going on here. And now a year later, it's when their joint backstory comes up, the one person didn't really care because it was like, oh, this isn't really like what, that was what he wrote. It wasn't what I had invested in.
The other one wasn't even there for the session. So it was all put on the guy who really didn't care. And he was like, I don't want to do this.
So to that point of how far to
Never
go,
get married when you play Dungeons and Dragons.
most players, like you said, will get enthralled immediately when they realize,
Shame
oh
on
my
him.
god, I can have a story and I can kind of plan out where I want to go. Have them start with bullet points, and this is for dungeon masters and players. Bullet points, a few bullet points of where your character's at and where you want them to go. Do not write a book, because that book is going to get thrown in the garbage as soon as the game starts. Or if someone doesn't feel as strongly about the story and they're connected, there won't be that connection there, that emotional connection there.
You want them to go on the hero's journey, right? It's I had a player that came to me. He basically wrote the movie of Gladiator, and that was just. I'm like, your first level. How can you be?
You can die tomorrow.
What you want is you want a player that comes to the table and was like, my character likes to get blackout drunk and do dumb things. Go with it.
Yeah,
and then you can just fill in.
That's perfect. That's a good way to start.
So
Our DM for this campaign he was talking about, he had us all write like a paragraph of backstory, just so we have an idea of what we wanted our character to be about.
Yeah, that's.
But we didn't know the locations or anything, so he filled in the rest, and we were put on this journey, and it's been going
Exactly.
to
Like 2 years now.
2 years now.
Bullet points, a paragraph, anything beyond that, then the player is setting themselves up with the wrong expectations, because those are going to get thrown out. And kind of putting that on the DM to not play right or play to what they were expecting is not fair to either one of them.
If you do write a long backstory, because I know I enjoy writing long backstories for my characters. If you do like that, make sure it can be adjustable, right? So make sure it's a thing where
Flexible.
Yeah. So don't just make it to where my character is this super big loner and I don't really I'm hard to make friends with, whatever. So when you guys make your adventuring party, your character, you're gonna be like, oh, my character would do this. It's like, yeah, but you wrote your character to be like that. Try to make it so your character is someone who can.
It's a group adventure, not a solo party.
Yeah. If it's a long backstory, just boil it down. And the last thing we'll touch.
No, I was just going to say that the more the group gets together, we used to create our characters, and we would we couldn't name our own character. Everyone else had to name it for us. We had this one
Exactly,
guy who
Janet.
was like the badass, and so one of the guys was we're naming each other. He's like, Doughboy. He's like, Michael's not Doughboy. We're like, you're Doughboy. You're Doughboy.
Wow.
He's got like the badass character. Like, he's Doughboy. So yeah, everyone had funky names, Lord Fauntleroy and stuff like that.
And the last thing I'll touch on for session 0, and then we'll keep going, is who is going to organize everyone. This is, again, another logistical thing that most people don't realize. It usually, and because they don't think about it, it usually gets thrown on the Dungeon Master because they're kind of creating the world anyway. It doesn't have to be the Dungeon Master. If someone else is a really good organizer in the group, have them do it. If you have people with weird schedules, get a Google Calendar if that's going to work for your group. Put it together and then find that weekend or that night or whatever it is everyone's free. Find that slot, put it on there, and say like, okay, that's the night we picked. That's the night we're going to show up and make sure that they remind people. Because if it's a month out, people are going to forget. Yeah, especially older. Once you get out of high school, you have a job and stuff. Other things take precedent. So whoever's that organizer,
Inconsistent schedules.
whoever's that organizer, be in constant communication with everyone in case something happens.
I'd just like to add to that too, from experience, that sometimes people feel guilty if they can't make it. And I think that you want to have a discussion in the beginning that it's okay if you can't make it, but please let the DM know as soon as possible,
Yes.
because the DM is trying to make your character part of the plot. And if you're saying, I
DMs
think
do a
I
lot of
can, I
work.
think I can, I think I can, and then you just don't show up, there's a hole in the plot.
Especially for combat mechanics too. If the DM's expecting, so for instance, our adventuring party is 8 people.
Whoa.
It's horrible. I hate it. I love it. I hate it.
Oh.
It's so long.
Ow.
Split that party.
Yes, I know. So our adventuring party is like 8 people. So when the DM's planning an encounter for 8 people, encounters are usually very deadly, just because of the fact that when you have 8 different player characters, anything less than very deadly is going to be a walk in the park, and it's not even going to be anything. So when 2 or 3 of those people are like, I can't make the session tonight, and it's 20 minutes before a game starts,
Right.
then now this super deadly encounter for like 8 people is now impossible
Slaughter.
for anybody who's left. So
But we talked about that earlier. I'm sorry. We talked about that a little bit with the weak points, the weaknesses. Like Smog has the 1 scale it's gone. If you create the thing and the weak point, then they can handle it because they're doing extra damage. Every time they hit the weak points, an extra 20 damage or whatever it is.
But the overall point stands.
Yeah.
If you can rebalance an encounter if you need to, but the Dungeon Master shouldn't have to do it 5 minutes before the game starts.
Yeah.
If you can't make the session, tell the group.
I've been in a campaign with 8 people before too.
So fun.
It didn't last. Every session, only like 4 people would show up at a time.
So with the campaigns, am I gathering from the campaigns? Because I imagine a lot of people new people starting, right? You've seen what you think D&D is, and you see these huge groups of people. Like 12 people gather around this table. I mean, what's a realistic goal for these people?
I would say a solid group, like 4 to 5 people.
Oh, okay.
Like maxing out at like 5.
4 in a DM, you think?
4 is the perfect
Like 4
number.
and the
Yeah,
DM?
the
Oh, okay.
party is the Golden Girls. It's 4
Okay.
people.
Like,
I'm not going
you
to
can
say.
definitely play with more. Just like they were saying earlier, combat extends exponentially
Yeah.
You-
with each additional character.
With
Okay.
8
It makes
people,
sense because everyone has to take a
I'm
turn.
sure it's not
Yeah.
uncommon for your battles to go on 2 sessions, right?
Heals.
We've had
That's 4.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, Lisa just mentioned
That's
something.
really true, bro. That's a good point.
At higher levels of D&D, especially when you get to level 10, depending on how encounter you set up the encounters, battle can take multiple sessions. So definitely keep that in mind. I switched the slide, so now we're actually talking about preparing the game. Now that you have players in mind, you have a schedule in mind, you have a system, you have characters created. The first thing, as a dungeon master, know the rules. You don't have to know all of the rules, but definitely if you have the Dungeon Master's Guide, read the rules about running the game. How do difficulty classes work? So I have this handy dandy DM screen, which I've showed off before, which has suggestions for difficulty classes on when someone rolls stealth or acrobatics. Something's very easy, it's a 5. Something is easy, it's a 10. Moderate, 15. Pretty much 5 increments of 5, it gets harder. That's a suggestion you can go by. It doesn't have to be exactly like this, but know when something says DC on a spell or an item or something, it means difficulty class, so you can explain that to the players.
Yeah, know the acronyms.
Yeah.
It helps with
AC is armor
looking
class.
looking for things quicker when you have to thumb through the guide, the player's handbook, or if you have to do a quick search. You know, don't be afraid to. Like, that's not embarrassing. It's part of the game. Like.
Yeah, but to avoid having to go back to the book,
Yeah, it's
rules
also about
lowering
time
in the mirror.
management is also good to know.
Yeah. So basics, difficulty classes, know how combat works, especially because you're going to have to explain this to new players. You have a turn, you have an action, you have a movement, you have a bonus action if your character has one. How armor class works, how difficulty classes work for spells, how ranged spell attacks work.
Melee attacks.
Yeah.
Home.
Yeah.
Cube.
Exactly.
Area of effect.
What are all the different areas of effect, and how do they kind of work on the map?
Power word kill.
And then beyond just knowing the rules, you need to know the basics, but also impart it. I mean, I've had really good success with this. Impart it on the players to know their rules. So if you're a fighter, know how a fighter works. If you're a druid, know how a druid works. If you're a spellcaster, know what your spells do.
So like a first person, like let's say you get a DM, this is their first one, they get the group's total noobs, they don't know anything either, and you're just figuring it out. How it's the best method for that DM to guide them through that process.
That's also another reason session 0 is very useful.
Okay.
Is because that's when you decide, okay, I want to play a druid. Okay, you have some homework to do. So that by session 1, you show up already having done a little, at least understand how like the first 2 or 3 levels of playing that character works, and how spellcasting works.
But I think
Druid's a
you're
really bad example because Druid is infamous for having like
I
very
think
complicated.
what you're
rules,
touching on goes into
And
pacing.
a magician.
If you get bogged down in the rules, or if the DM slows down too much, or whatever, you're right. If nobody knows what they're doing, it can throw off the pacing.
Yeah, and that's to your point, Eddie.
Okay. Because I'm thinking about these poor people like gathering around a table.
Yeah,
Where do
you've
we
got-
begin? You know.
If you've got folks coming in for Adventure League for the first
And there's no
time,
Gandalf, you know,
or
like-
we're running a pre-made game here.
Okay.
That's a personality type. There's always going to be one.
That's a whole other session we could do
I
about
had
gaming
one who was an
personalities.
actual lawyer who was the rules lawyer.
Oh my
In
gosh.
paragraph 3, subsection S. I'm like, oh.
no.
no.
So he was a wizard.
Yeah, no.
Especially the wizard.
So is there a DM over the DMs? Like, is there ever one person helping everybody
Sometimes,
else?
Like for some games, like I know that I'm gonna bring them up again. Here I
Critical
go.
Role.
I know for Critical Role, before they started streaming their games, when they first started their home game, one of the people who eventually became one of the players, she wasn't playing. She was just like floating around the table, making sure like, oh, you need help, pointing stuff out on.
If you've got a person for that,
character
great.
sheets and stuff. If somebody's willing to like not play but be a helpful
Be a
hand,
referee.
almost be a co-DM in that sense.
Okay.
Yes, that's great.
Makes sense.
If you don't have that, and you've got people coming again for Adventure League, or like if we run something here
Yeah.
with pre-made characters, I think video game terms really help. Like if you're a cleric, you're a healer. You heal people. That's your thing.
Okay.
And explain like an RPG. Everyone has a turn. You have a turn. You can do X number of things, and it's good to have handouts. I have a handy dandy. I don't think I have one here, but it's a handout that says in combat you can do action, movement,
Okay.
bonus action.
Yeah, those are very helpful.
Yeah. So especially for new
Reaction.
players, yeah, this is all the things that you can do. If you have any questions, I'm the dungeon master. Let me
Okay.
know.
And
Cool.
always be patient with them,
Yes.
especially new ones, because
characters.
you don't want their first experience to be
New players.
really like, this was not fun. I don't want to come back
Yeah.
to this.
Overwhelming.
Because, you know,
You don't want to like shove somebody out of the space. We want to create a community of
Happy place.
Yeah.
Okay, makes sense.
So the next thing to actually prepare NPCs. Just a list of names. Depending on the location that they're going, just have a list of names.
Well, not everybody knows what NPC stands for.
Non-player
Non-player
character.
There you go.
Going back to the video game thing.
I know what it means, but you never know. You got to be like people
Non-player
they don't know. They
Everyone who is not
real.
Dungeon Master. Or
Can an
Dungeon
NPC be a real person?
Everyone who is the Dungeon Master. I should
sure
say.
if that's the kind of game you're playing.
Yeah, it could be not gameplay.
But You don't have to have,
It's just
oh,
Jonah.
this NPC is Bob Smith and he has a sister and he went to this school and he lives in this town and he's a farmer, and you don't need to know any of that for an NPC. You need to know that they have a name and you can plug them in wherever they need to be, and then if the characters really like them or they want to dig into something, if they're the shopkeep, whatever it is, they will. The characters will latch onto someone and then that'll become their, ruffians or whatever it was from Critical Role.
They're Gilmore,
Poor
or
child.
usually it's like the guy who runs the magic shop or whatever.
I will tell you a secret. No Dungeon Master plans that. It just happens organically.
Okay.
But I've heard give him 3 things. Like he's a skinny innkeeper, he's got a hook nose, and
That's even more than I'd give them.
3 things.
So you can imagine it?
And so they remember, so that the people will be like, wait, a skinny innkeeper? I don't trust a skinny innkeeper. Something's up with the skinny innkeeper.
Yeah, okay.
You know, like, it's a little, like, you just give them like a couple qualities.
If you-
Yeah, that's already like once you're that's part of the improv part, and that's where taking notes is big. So like
If you're not.
they come into the inn, and they're like, okay, who's the innkeeper? It's Bob. What does Bob look like? You describe what Bob looks like.
But you can ask Bob. The next thing,
Yes,
pacing,
it will
which we
be.
are working on with this session itself, because it's already gone longer than I think we meant it to. But this is back to your question of how long does a session take. We have a general idea, but that only comes with doing it. After you do it with the players that you're going to be playing with, you'll have a better idea.
Because that also kind of depends on your player's style. Like, do they spend half the session chit-chatting amongst themselves? Priorities as players.
And speaking of getting to the objective, it's completely allowed and completely a thing to let the players fail. A lot of new DMs especially will be, oh, I want the player characters to win. I want them to get to the end. I want to do this thing because I prepped it or because that's how the module is set out. If the dice say, and this is definitely my opinion, and I think it helps players, if the dice say that the player dies, they die.
Don't be afraid to be the bearer of bad news.
Yeah.
Sometimes failure, it'll hurt, but it'll, especially in like story-driven campaigns, something like a character death or like a really big failure, or they failed to kill the thing, or they weren't able to stop this unstoppable force from escaping from its chains or whatever. Now you have something new to work towards, or there's a new development. It helps the characters. You can create fun out of failure.
And what happens when a character dies?
That person rolls a new character.
So, like straight up.
Well, you can do
You
two.
fifth, right?
I've died a few times.
Oh, have you? Okay.
Well,
You can-
again, we run 8 people
If you're lucky enough to have a
campaigns,
cleric or
Yeah.
or a druid in your party that has
Of
like
high
a
enough
healing,
level.
or that can, there are spells, there are ways
Res
around
you.
death.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Resurrection.
that's you can actually use a character death to build upon your story. That could
Yeah.
be
How
another
does
adventure.
resurrection work
Yeah,
in
right.
your
Getting a certain
world?
artifact,
Exactly.
or whatever. Yeah.
And
So-
speaking to the mechanics of death.
You're very welcome.
Once your HP reaches, some of the newer players might know this. Once your HP reaches 0 in older versions of D&D, you'd be dead. In this version, you still have the opportunity for someone to either stabilize you, use magic to heal you, and bring you back up. If they're not able to get to you in time, you roll what's called a death save.
saves.
So if you get 10 or above, you succeed. If you get below a 10, you fail.
If you
Get
get a
3 fail.
1, you fail twice. If you get a 20, you automatically come back up at 0.
If you're tracking
Right?
one,
At 1?
Yeah, at 1 HP.
if you have 8 players, it's a lot. But if you're kind of tracking what damage you're doing,
You want to be fairer with the damage. Sometimes they're the fighter and they're up front.
Yeah, well,
they have to tank it.
Or for instance, if you're playing as a wizard, like if you as the DM are your big bad guy is a scary wizard who's smart and intelligent, he might have certain battle strategies. He might know go after the casters first to get them out of the way because
Take out their healer.
Take out the healer, yeah, stuff like that. So
Get in the sky, stay out of the range
Yeah.
of the melee player.
Yeah.
The melee dudes.
So what I'm getting from all this is I should probably play as a player so I can understand the game better before trying
That's
to
totally
DM?
fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are people who jump straight into being DMs and you know figure it out, but definitely playing the game,
Seeing the player
helps,
side.
Helps you understand.
I played 2 store-bought games and then I started DMing because no one else would.
Yeah,
I played
it's-
one.
As long as your
Sometimes
players understand that you're learning,
Yeah.
you know.
And then the more social aspect of character death, depending on how invested your characters are, the players are in their characters. You can sort this out in the in the actual game in the world when you're playing to say when you're dead, you're dead. Too bad, so sad. Make a new character, or your character's dead. You failed all your saves. You're 100% gone. They either need to in D&D they have the resurrection spells, which are really high level and really expensive. You have to get like a diamond worth 1,000 gold or something like that.
Revivify is 500 gold. There's a couple of spells
Agent.
like that
There-
that have different
There
things.
are special
Yeah, exactly.
there are
You
spells,
can
there
make
are
like
items in the game,
You can
or you
also-
can make one up that revives someone. But then that's something that the players are going to have to take on themselves. And then what does that other player who's dead do? Do they roll a new character and play that in the meantime, or do they just like sit out until their character's back alive? I've seen that happen.
And then maybe they owe a huge debt because they didn't have the money to heal themselves.
No.
What? And then that's the adventure. Then they have to go pay off the debt with some adventure that's like crazy.
Yeah, so even character death, like you can use that so much to your advantage to build upon the story. Like I also would suggest if a character death does happen, you allow it to have meaning, right? So for instance, I recently had a character die back in like December in this 1.5-year campaign. So I'd had them for about a year, and then basically they got disintegrated through like a soul tether or something like that. Like I was connected to this other person, and then they got disintegrated, so I got secondhand disintegration. And it was so sudden for me that like I was kind of like in shock. I would definitely suggest giving character deaths an opportunity to have like last words or like last whatever before like instant death, because that way it gives them, or even make sure that the tone is set too. So like if you're just like, oh, you're fighting a giant centipede, haha, like whatever, it's not that big a deal, and then it's like, oh, I just crit like twice and now you're dead, I'm sorry. Like that's, give them a chance to like.
I mean,
understand the tone.
if you're setting the tone
We all shall
where like
fall.
it's a harsh world and it's a hard game, instant player death can be a thing, and maybe they just roll on because the players are expecting it. But yeah, giving them the opportunity to like say something, or like you say, have the character's death have some meaning, or at least story-wise meaning, is a good way to keep that person invested even though they're dead. They have
And
to make
that's
a new
all
character.
part of setting expectations and communicating and understanding what everybody wants out of that game and what's fun for everybody there.
And the character death proves there's consequences.
Yeah, again,
Sure.
actual
It makes it
consequences.
more-
It's these
more
same
real.
it's these same ideas that keep coming back. It's really the answer to most questions is talk to each other about it.
Yeah. A lot of, and I think this is a more old school thing that I've run into with some older school players, DMs who are kind of on their own, playing with random people online. They're really secretive about the game and how they're running it. They're not really some of the ones I've played with were not really into collaboration and like. I want to do this thing with a character. Like, no. If you're hitting a point where you're saying no to someone wanting to just do. Yeah, you should say no if it's like, I want my character to be the greatest, best person, and nothing ever happens to them. No, like that's boring, and we're not going to play that game. But if it's like, oh, I want to start a business in this world, totally, go with it. There are no rules in the game for doing that, by the way, or there might be some, but they're like not great. You can make up your own. If the person wants to do that, and I can give them like a hook to say like, I love this town and I built this business and like I made this thing in this world.
Can players stay behind in worlds and not continue with the party forward?
Yeah.
Yes.
Sure.
We've had actually
Yeah.
one of our guys. His character was not.
You can
able
retire
to,
a character. Yes.
His character was not able to even mend with the group because one of our characters was an undead, and his character hates undead. So his character left, and he rolled a new character.
Oh, okay.
There was a game that had character trees called Dark Sun. And your lead character progressed at the lead experience, but all your other characters would get trickle down partial experience. So they were kind of leveling as well.
Interesting.
So you could take a backup character, or you could take another character if it suited the situation. Or whatever.
Very cool.
The best feeling as a player you could ever have is you've gotten to a point where you've done everything you can with a character, and you say like they can't be with the party anymore because they have to do this. They have to go head up this guild, or they have to go, you know, do this heroic thing that's completely separate, and you retire that character because then you've fulfilled your arc. You've gone from whatever scrub you started out as to the badass that you envisioned yourself being. And then...
And that might not even be at level 20.
Yeah.
You know?
Journey.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, so character retirement, totally a thing. And then the last thing we reiterate when you're done with every session, and on campaigns in general, get feedback. See where the players are at. Always check in.
Okay.
All right? This one's really short. There is such a thing as being over-prepared.
Gladiator.
I think every Dungeon Master runs into this, especially with their first game that they're running. They'll want to plot out the entire world,
They fill in all the spaces.
fill in everything, and that is one, no fun for the other players because
Will,
their actions
can I
should
get the
fill in
cable?
some of this.
For my phone.
And two, most of what you do, like I said before, if the player writes a book, it's going to get thrown out. If the Dungeon Master writes a book, it is going to get thrown out.
As players, I'm sure you've encountered, you know, you're preparing for an encounter, and you know you have that idea of, you know, any plan that your party makes is going to fall apart the minute you actually encounter your enemy. Well, as the DM, I don't want to call them your enemy, but your players are very much that. The thing that you're going to encounter.
Your players are chaos.
So any plan that you make as soon as you encounter, you know, the thing, it's gonna fall apart immediately. So do what you do the minimum.
Bullet points.
Do the
I
bullet
always go bullet
points and let things happen as they may. This is an improv game. Don't be afraid to improv.
I definitely want to say if you have a specific idea for like a big bad evil guy, abbreviated BBEG, don't if you are going to have them monologue, put your player characters in a situation where
They have to sit and listen.
yeah, exactly. don't expect your player characters to sit there and listen to this guy that they've been meaning to like maim and injure their entire player careers, and not expect them to take the first opportunity to just shoot them in the face with an arrow.
Yeah.
Sharpshooter.
Sorry,
-5 out of 10. Right?
There's a little something there. You can tell. It's a little something.
Yeah.
But I think that one of the personality traits that gravitates towards DMing is the world builder, and the world builder has the tendency to try and fill in all the spaces.
Oh yeah.
And so
That's such a nice way of saying control freak.
I have a friend, I won't name them, but they were interested in D&D too. They played. I'm like, oh, I want to run a game. And I know him. He's a very controlling personality. So I tell him, bullet points. We need to start in a town with a few things, and then we'll go from there. He proceeded to build an entire world, literally an entire planet with continents and cities,
If you
economies,
want to write a novel, just write a novel.
politics, all of these things going on.
And then write the novels with the same kind
in the very first session, we burnt down the tavern and killed everyone.
Yeah.
It wasn't even my fault. Like one of the other players got frustrated, burned down the tavern, and we left.
I swear it only might have been me.
So things like that, you can prepare way too much.
Yeah.
Bullet points, a paragraph at most. There's an exercise that I don't know. I guess we'll get to.
We'll get to it.
Like, how long do you want this to go, Eddie?
I would say like keep it within the frame that you said.
Okay.
Like till 9 at the,
Until
like so
9?
which is only
Okay,
like
we
20
have
minutes.
that.
Which is only like 20 minutes,
Yeah, so
25.
we'll talk about. There's a framework that we'll talk about. Well, we'll talk about this first.
Yeah.
So in between sessions, you want to again get feedback, communicate, and then from those notes that you've taken during the session, figure out what can I do to make it interesting for next time.
Yeah, there's this is DM work because most players once the game is done, they just wait until the next session starts. But that's when the DM starts to create the next world, create the next campaign, create the next session, whatever it is that
Yeah,
you're
if at
working
the end of the last session your players just, are within sight of the next town, well, now you gotta make that next town. You gotta figure out what's going on there.
And this is something from the Matt Mercer video, which we might put up on the Facebook as well. Dungeon Masters put in a lot of work for the world that they're creating. So as players, be aware of that. That you might not care about this NPC that they created, and that's totally valid. That's totally fine. But in real life, don't just take it as a given that the Dungeon Master just kind of like has all this ready. Most of the time, it's session to session, and they're creating things as they go.
It's very much laying the tracks in front of the train.
Yeah.
As it's going.
All right. And the next thing.
And now we're gonna talk about like the nuts and bolts.
Yep.
A very unfortunate acronym, I'm afraid. So these are the bullet points.
I saw this. I forget the girl's video online. To give credit. I did not make this up myself, but this is an acronym, and this is a framework to create your own setting. How many of you have actually created a setting? Okay, so for and I don't think he has either.
But these are
we have
like
paper here. We're
bullet
gonna have
points,
you run through.
questions that you should be able to answer about that setting.
Oh yeah, just pass it down. We're gonna have you go through the exercise of creating your own setting. Using, we've been dancing around it, the sperm method, if you will. We give a shot of the slide of there, Eddie, with the. You should have left justified this one so they can see it. Just right down.
No.
I see it.
But yes, the sperm method. It's kind of unfortunate acronym, but it says exactly what you need to set up a setting. Does everyone have something to write with?
I do
Well, we have pens in front.
Yes. Can you get that to them all?
No, we have pens in the front.
But to run it down, the five things you need for any setting, regardless of the size. If it's a town, if it's an entire world.
It could be a single tavern.
Yeah. You need what is this S? What is the society? What is it based on? What is it based around? Just what's the general vibe? Is it at war? Is it at peace? Whatever that sort of thing is.
What kind of races make it up?
Be as specific or as general as you need to be. P, politics. How do the politics work in this world? Is it very cloak and dagger? Is it like the Greek Senate? Is it like our politics today, where it's a lot of horse trading? How do the politics work in this world? And then it says how the players interact with it. E, where are the economics of this world? Does everything run on gold, or are there multiple different currencies? Are there can you trade livestock? Is slavery a thing and you trade people? How does the world work? What kind of greases the wheel? R, religion. What is the religion of this town? What is the religion of this world? Are there multiple religions? If you're in the
pantheon.
Yeah, if you're in the Forgotten Realms, that's kind of already done for you. But then in the specific location, what gods do they worship?
Yeah, the DM's Guide has a very good list, and you can find it online, of course, if you just look up like D&D 5e like pantheons, and it has. You can take from literally anything. You can take from Mayan and Norse and Greek. Take your pick. You can make things up.
I had a player in one of my last campaigns. I think Thor's one in is Thor one in 5e?
You can be.
Thor, like those
God of Thunder.
God of Thunder and Justice and Protection. He went with that one. But then I have another character. He went with what was it, like a Hindu god? One of those.
And then in that, and then this is maybe something like an extra layer, are the gods actually real, or are they are they real physical forces that eventually your characters can go and meet? Are they like actual people, in the sense of people, or are they just concepts? Are they are the politics then affected by it? Is society then affected by it?
And then the last one, M, military. What military situation is going on? Is this a very militaristic city where there's a very regimented guard? Is this a small town where they have a
couple cops?
A couple, people who may not even be cops. They just kind of bounce people who cause trouble.
Who's the big sheriff in town?
But yeah, we'll take we'll say like 5 minutes. Write the SPERM on the sheet and just kind of like outline it. We can do a quick just rundown of what everyone kind of came up with. I don't think we have any more paper for us.
There, that's up front. Will can grab you some. Watch yourself, Lisa.
I'm gonna get some water.
Yeah.
But yeah, and this is the exercise that I use to start any session. If it's a new town, any new world I'm creating. I'm gonna stop that because I'm not range. All right. The only thing just for all of you, you don't need to be constrained to just gold, just saying gold for the economics of it. If it's a fishing village, you can say fish is their economy. That's how they make their money. It's a farming town. They farm.
Subsistence is it?
Yeah.
Like what's a big source of trade?
Like
wine.
physical trade.
Is it trade? Is their thing trade? They're a trading town. They don't make anything. They're a hub for other people to come and do business, and they make some off the top.
Yeah, so I just used a city that I created. It's called the Walled City of Caspar. It splits a river. It's a multiracial metropolis. There's a doge, and there's nobles, and so underneath the doge is like it's from Venice.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like an elected one noble that's elected to lead all the other nobles, and it's a lifetime thing. Okay, so there's a house of nobles and a house of guild masters. There's different numbers of each, and so they together kind of make the rules that some people follow and some don't. It's a free-flowing, open capitalism. There's gold coins of all the realms flow in there, but all the gold coins from different realms have different percentages of gold in them, so they carry different value. So for one land, maybe one is mixed with gold and iron, and other is mixed with gold and copper. So and they different percentages.
Market values.
There's different value for them. The main cash crops are tobacco and rice. Everyone smokes in this place. There's religions of every realm, and they have different festivals, different times of the year. So you have like a very much freedom of religion. And a lot of those are just kind of contradictory or whatever. They all seem foreign because there's it's a metropolis. There's city police. There's also the guard for the larger city and the outside. There's a mage corps. There's a cutter service, which is a coast guard. You know, because of all the trade. There's a multitude of gangs that follow their own rules, and that's just what I have.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, yeah, anything from the town guard to gangs can be part of that military section.
Tough act to follow. Just saying. Just saying.
My city has a river.
I think he's done it before.
My city has a river. It's a people.
Maybe.
Mine's a little more basic. It's a kingdom with a ranking society: nobles, knights, squires, peasants. You know, the basic. It's run by a monarchy. You know, there's a king, one king, family heritage. You know, going back to whoever started it. It's mostly run by trade, but the monarchy believes in gold. So in order to get something from the monarchy, you need gold. So of course there is gold. Religion: monarchy has its own one true god, and everyone else, some do follow, some follow their own gods. You know. As life is. And then there is a strong military presence. That's all.
That reinforces them.
Yeah, that reinforces the monarchy.
Okay. So I don't really have a name for mine, but mine's it's like a small Arctic village almost, like in an Arctic desert. Pretty much the main food source is like fish, but there's little to no plant life, for miles and miles and miles. It is like dead center between like a forest and then I'm thinking maybe like a water tribe from like Avatar: Last Airbender or something like that, right? So, but it's like way out in the middle of nowhere. Politics is that it's basically the leader of this village is a druid from one of those neighboring regions, and he pretty much solely produces a lot of like the food and stuff like that with either good berries or casting like Hero's Feast. Like through his magic, he's able to create food for people that travel by, and so some people even settle there because of what he's able to create. The economy is very loosely based. It's more so if people decide to travel through on their way there, it's like one of the only stops that you can kind of get to. So whatever people have to trade, if they do have food or pellets or anything like that. The religion is most people who live in this small village or whatever almost either worship the druid himself or the deity that he serves. And then the military, I thought it'd be pretty cool to have. So druids can a lot of druids can cast like conjure animals or something like that. So maybe he has like a patrol of spectral wolves or something like that he uses.
Awesome.
Polar bears.
Or like polar bears or something, yeah. And
Penguins.
then maybe any volunteer militia or something like that.
Militia of penguins.
Militia of penguins.
They're all always
They all have
dressed for
uniforms. Oh my God.
Boys.
Next one?
All right. The place that I generate is actually something. It's something that I created semi-recently. It's actually going to be the starting point in a campaign that I'm going to be running somewhat shortly.
Also cheating.
I mean, I still had to build it from the
No,
ground.
keep
I still had to
going.
build it from the ground up. It's a place that a friend of mine actually helped me name, which I affectionately call Clover Bay. It's a small fishing village that's inhabited mostly by like gnomes, dwarves, a handful of tieflings, and Triton. The entire town is based upon agriculture, fishing, hunting, very loose amounts of trade. They are on the outer territories of a much larger empire, so they are not necessarily vanguarded with military everywhere. They might get a couple patrols every now and then. It's mostly run entirely on volunteer militia. Every now and again, they will have gold running through the town's economy, but it's going to be more or less based upon essentially a barter system.
Interesting.
The Empire has a much larger pantheon, but because of the area that they are located in, they are mostly going to be going by the rule of Persephone, the goddess of the harvest.
Awesome.
That's about what I had.
Dang.
Nice. Okay, so mine was just kind of general world building. The society's stratified. There's little upward mobility. Mostly it's old money families and monopolies.
We could do that.
The politics varies by city-states. Mostly they're monarchies with some democracies mixed in. Economy is mostly gold-based. Trade's possible in cities, but very infrequently. The religion is a pantheon. There's no physical gods, but you actually do need genuine belief for healing and spell casting. So if you lose faith in your god, you lose the ability to cast.
Okay.
And then all the city-states are pretty heavily militarized due to like monstrous incursions from other planes. But they don't use their militaries against each other. It's mostly for defense against extraplanar threats.
Nice.
Huh.
So humanity
That's
and
interesting.
all races are kind of united.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they don't die.
So I know we're almost out of time, but all of these settings that you've all created are all equally valid. The only thing I'll mention to anyone at home, or or you guys creating these sessions and you want to do something with them, just on the very first one, the society, whatever it is, the world, the town, the city, give it a name, because that's the first thing the players are going to ask. What's this place called? So have something to give them in your pocket. Other than that, any of these are equally as valid
It's
to
a starting point.
as a starting point. We had another exercise plan, but we can do that next time.
Yeah.
But up on the screen, we have a list of resources that, at least for us, have been really good. dndbeyond.com. It's free. You can use Google or Twitch to log in, and it has all of the open source material for D&D and some of the not open source stuff.
You can pay for essentially the same price that you would pay to have a physical book. You can get a digital version of it.
Or
it has been a boon for making the game a lot more accessible. You can keep track of your
Everything on your
characters
phone.
on there. The app is very good for like you need to quickly look up a spell or a creature.
it's
or
good for
something
players
like that.
and
It's very
dungeon
good like that.
masters. And the thing with I thought you were going to mention too, it has a lot of stuff for free, but there are some things that you don't
That are behind the paywall.
that you have to buy, but you don't have to buy the
don't
entire
have to buy the
book.
whole thing.
If you just want to buy
Huh.
one subclass for a paladin, that's what my brother did in the campaign we were doing.
Yeah,
It's like $2.
I bought like
Not-
most of the
We're
spells.
not sponsored by them, but it's really good.
Yeah, I bought most of the spells and I bought
Sponsor
most of the
us.
backgrounds.
I bought it all.
So here's another cool thing is that if one person with their account purchases all that source material, your group can have access to all that through
That's
a
right.
campaign that they
Spencer was telling me about
That's what I
that.
do for my friends.
Yes, so we actually use a lot of his source material stuff. Well, exactly. So if everybody pools their money together, and it's like, oh hey, we really want to buy this $50 new book that's coming out. Everybody pitch in, $10 or whatever, and we'll get it on Jose's account.
Yeah.
And be like, all right, cool.
Share
like,
that
let's-
to everybody else.
Exactly.
And that's not. That's not
I like that,
that's how the
So
Alexander.
like,
system works.
that's how they set it up to where it's easier access for you and your friends for your campaign.
Yeah.
So
That's like
Yeah.
sharing a Netflix.
Yeah, like sharing Netflix account.
We
We'll have to
all-
blurb that out.
In general, YouTube and YouTube is good for a lot of instructional videos. So, how does battle work? How do what's the 4E thing that we use sometimes?
Skill challenges?
How do skill challenges work? How do certain characters work? How do certain spells work? You can look those sort of things up. You can look up other DMs' experiences. Some people DM on YouTube itself, so you can see how games run. They do that on Twitch too. I really recommend if you want to get your feet wet and just like how's the game run before actually doing one yourself.
I mean, for me,
Take a
before
look.
I found out any of my friends actually played this game or even wanted to play this game, I learned how to play Dungeons and Dragons by like watching D&D podcasts.
Critical
like
Role's a
Critical
big
Role,
one.
Adventure Zone.
Dimension 20 is really good from College Humor.
It Me JP, I like that one. But there's tons.
Team 4-star.
Yeah,
Frozen Dragons.
I know Matt Mercer does.
the Critical Role Handbooker Helper.
I like him.
Yeah, that one specifically is a really, I really enjoy because they're very short, quick, simple. They give you the basics to get you at least started, and then from there if you need more.
Yeah. Matt Mercer, who runs Critical Role, he's a good resource online. Matt Colville, he's part of Wizards now, I think. He's definitely one of the big guys for playtesting a lot of the 5e stuff. Adam Colville, he's a different type of dungeon master, but he's really good. I've watched him for a lot of my stuff, and he's colored a lot of the stuff that we've done in our games. And then 5esrd.com, that's all the open source stuff. A lot of the Dungeon Master stuff is right there for free online. Roll20.com, if you want to play a game with people who are not in the same room as you. It's built-in video, it's pretty good. A bit of a learning curve in setting it up,
The
but they
UI
have videos and
is a
stuff.
little bit of a mess, but it does what it needs to do.
Yeah. And the last one, which we're trying to build here in the Margate, beautiful Margate area, is your local community as well as the online community. Online community, Twitter, Twitch,
There's Facebook
Reddit,
groups,
Facebook.
Reddit.
You can reach out to folk anywhere, but
Discord.
seeing people in real life, face to face, is definitely a different vibe. And knowing that they're in the same area as you, or you're generally, is really good. Because then you have resources that you can kind of just like have at your
Disposal.
disposal.
Yeah.
Easier
And like
disposal.
as DMs, sometimes you're having trouble doing something for your game. You don't want to
Everyone
turn
else.
to one of your players for help. Well, we have each other now. As you're just like, oh god, my players did this thing. It really threw my plans through a loop. What do I do?
I threw a deck of many things into the game and it ruined
Why would you
everything.
do this? Do that.
That's what I would do first session.
Oh my god.
Do not take that advice.
Do it.
Definitely give them the D10,000 wild search chart.
Very cool.
Oh my god. But
The last note that I want to personally make is in reference, now that we've talked about some of YouTube DMs, people who have been doing this for 30 years or forever, people who are lauded as master DMs. You don't need to compare yourselves to them. Don't get intimidated
Their word
because
is not
you're
law.
not Matthew Mercer, because you're not Matt Colville.
yeah.
Everyone has their own way. You take what you want from the people who inspired you to come to this game and come to this role within the game, But make it your own, make it fun for yourself. Don't stress yourself out to the point where it's not fun anymore because you're trying to be somebody you're not. That's really just defeats the purpose of the whole thing.
Just like when we touched on before, that the Dungeon Master isn't the arbiter of fun. People who've played more than you are not the arbiter of what is and isn't correct in role-playing in D&D.
Very cool.
That varies from player to player, that varies from group to group. But, yeah, that's...
Have fun,
that's
learn as you go.
Have fun. That's the most important thing.
And you guys decided on the date for the other one, for the next one?
So I think we're going to try
First
to
Monday?
run...
For the...
Oh no, the one shot.
The first set of one-shots that we want to run is the 27th.
Okay, and that's Monday?
That is a Monday.
Okay, good. So this is
2 weeks from now?
Is it 2 weeks out?
okay, it gives people enough time to prep.
No,
24th.
24th.
The 24th.
24th, people. I will make a Facebook event off of it. If you show up on Thursday,
From now.
the tables it'll be build night. You can still build stuff, but you won't be able to play.
That's another thing we'll touch on later because we ran out of time. But
we should get Victoria here for that one.
Yes.
So cool.
But and then if you guys will have us and if Flynn's will have us, we can if these are popular enough, we can do more of these to talk about Dungeon Master 102.
Cool.
So if you have any further questions, you can send those in so we can build out those discussions. And then also eventually my personal vision is that we come here to, workshop our own games and, throw ideas around and pick each other's brains for things that try to create things that are maybe more interesting than we can come up with on our own.
Awesome.
Collaboration. Point number 1. But I think that's it. That's
it
for tonight. We will sign off here from again.